When I uploaded Understanding Lil Peep 3 months ago, I thought it was the last time I was going to be writing a tribute to a dead 21-year-old for a while. But I was wrong. A month later, while I was in Boston for a weekend exploring the city, taking a short break from videos, I woke up in my Airbnb to the news that Jarad Higgins, a 21-year-old rapper from Chicago, had died suddenly from a seizure. And to be completely honest, at first I didn't even want to make a video about his death. I've made so many videos about the tragic deaths of people who are just a year or two older than me that at this point it feels frustrating and sad. From my perspective, as the person who writes and makes the videos, it's not a very fun thing to do. Sure, the videos get views and I feel like I'm doing important work telling these stories, but it's a really heavy task. And so I told myself that instead of rushing to chronicle the life of Juice WRLD, I would just sit this one out. That is until a few weeks ago, when on a whim I started listening to Juice WRLD's music and reading about the artist he was. I found myself interested in his music and his legacy, and in turn I started looking for a way to tell his story. The story of a young man who, despite spending much of his life in an uphill battle against addiction and mental illness, was intelligent, creative, and hard-working. A young man who spoke for his generation in good times and bad. This is the story of Juice WRLD. This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream. You can also get access to my streaming video service, Nebula, when you sign up for CuriosityStream using the link in the description below. Jarad Higgins was born in Chicago in December of 1998, which is a number that makes me feel two things. Firstly, I'm impressed that he was able to achieve so much in such a short time, with his music career really only taking off in early 2018. And secondly, it makes me feel insecure, because with me being born in October of 99, Juice WRLD was only 10 months older than me. It really puts into perspective just how much he did with his life. But to understand how he got there, we first have to look back in time to Juice WRLD's childhood and his introduction to music. Juice WRLD was raised by his mom, and like most loving moms, she did a lot to help him grow as a person. But before we get into Jarad's home life, I want to talk about his neighborhood life. Because soon after Jarad was born, his mom moved them out of Chicago proper to Homewood, a nearby suburb to the south of the city. And while Homewood may be a suburb, there are a few things about it that set it apart from what most people assume about American suburbs. Firstly, Homewood is connected to inner-city Chicago via commuter rail, which means that young people who don't have their own cars yet, or maybe can't even drive, have a reliable way to get around by themselves rather than getting stuck in their subdivisions. Secondly, Homewood is miles more diverse than the average suburb in the US. Whereas the average American suburb is 70% white and 10% black, Homewood is 60% white and 35% black. An environment like this gave Jarad an upbringing that was less sterile than the usual suburban childhood, while also giving him access to resources that most kids in inner-city Chicago don't have. And the foremost of those resources would turn out to be his high school. Homewood Flossmoor High is regularly ranked as one of the most academically challenging high schools in the country, and one of the best funded in the areas of music, sports, and art. And with the school buildings themselves winning a Gold LEED Award for environmental sustainability, Homewood Flossmoor is forward-thinking too. The school has produced many successful athletes and artists, including rappers like Femdot and Toby Lou, and even Chad Smith, the drummer in the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Long story short, Homewood Flossmoor is a school that puts a lot of resources into its students, and arguably none of them have risen to heights like that of Juice WRLD, who only graduated in 2017, recently enough that he definitely has friends there who haven't even graduated yet. At home, Jarad's mom was religious in a way that many of us are familiar with. She didn't approve of hip-hop lyrics, so Jarad was really only allowed to listen to rock music, a genre that he would eventually develop a love for and even work into the fabric of his own music. His favorite artists growing up included Green Day, Nirvana, Panic at the Disco, and even Black Veil Brides.
Back to the street where we the only road, the only one that
But his friends and cousins exposed him to hip-hop, and before long, Jarad developed a love for rapping, especially artists like Kanye, Future, Lil Wayne, and Young Thug. remix to Gucci Mane and Jeezy songs that he wasn't allowed to play at home. This diverse combination of influences, coupled with Jarad's talent for piano, gave him the motivation and skill set he needed to start developing a musical persona as young as 16, when he started dropping music on SoundCloud as Juice TheKidd. But at the same time he discovered his talent for music, Jarad was also struggling with drug addiction. He started taking opiates in the 6th grade, and he even revealed later that it was Future's music that inspired him to try lean. But he put his head down and kept working through the pain. It only took around 2 years of hard work and practice before Jarad got noticed. By this time, he had changed his stage name to Juice WRLD, formed a relationship with Virginia producer Nick Mira that would result in most of his biggest hits, and even briefly worked in a factory before deciding that music was the only path he wanted to take. And so just 2 weeks after he graduated high school in 2017, Juice WRLD dropped his 4th self-released EP, 999. But more importantly than the EP itself was its 2nd track, Lucid Dreams. Over the next few months, the song would grow to achieve global popularity, going 6 times platinum with over 1.1 billion streams on Spotify in February 2020. And for the next 6 months, as 2017 turned into 2018, Juice WRLD continued dropping songs, music videos, and working on new collaborations until March of 2018, almost 2 years ago, when he was signed to Interscope for $3 million. A massive, unprecedented amount of money for a 19-year-old who was unheard of just a few months ago. And so Juice WRLD got to work. His first album dropped 2 months later, and it was a massive hit. It peaked at number 4 on the US charts, and with songs like All Girls Are the Same, Lucid Dreams, and Lean With Me, the album racked up over 2 billion streams on Spotify with ease. But Jarad's world, and that of hip-hop as a whole, was shaken a month later when XXXTentacion was murdered in his hometown at the age of 20, just 3 months after releasing a #1 album. The day after X's death, Juice WRLD dropped the song Legends as a reflection on the deaths of both X and Lil Peep in the same year, and how he felt that his own generation was cursed. But at the same time, Juice WRLD's music was exactly in line with that idea. His music borrowed from emo, punk, grunge, hip-hop, and SoundCloud rap, and more importantly, he sang and rapped about depression, addiction, heartbreak, and dying young. And with each passing tragedy in the rap game, Juice WRLD's name continued to come up in conversation about who might be next. But Juice WRLD's career only continued to grow. With a guest spot on Astroworld and his first ever late-night TV appearance in the summer of 2018, he was becoming a household name. And just when he couldn't reach any higher, he dropped a collaborative mixtape with Future called World on Drugs. The mixtape was a massive achievement for Juice WRLD. Remember, he was still in the early months of his career, and he grew up idolizing Future. But the finished product of World on Drugs was rough to say the least. First, the mixtape was made in just 5 days, and you can tell that was the case because it's honestly pretty repetitive and generic. But beyond that, there was something dark about its context. One of the biggest headlines to come out of the mixtape had nothing to do with the music itself, but instead, people were talking about an exchange that Juice WRLD and Future had in the studio. The story goes like this. Juice WRLD meets one of his biggest role models for the first time. He's been working towards this for years, and it's a huge moment for him. And he finally has the opportunity to tell Future something he's been wanting to say for years. Future, you inspired me to try lean for the first time. And Future is shocked. He doesn't know what to say. He apologizes awkwardly. In that moment, whose truth is impossible to verify, was covered by journalists everywhere. It's hard to imagine something more poetic than a rookie rapper rapidly approaching superstardom, finally meeting his hero and shaking him to his core. A few months later, Future was profiled by Rolling Stone in an article titled "Future Changed Rap for a Generation, and He Doesn't Know How to Feel About It." In the article, Future talked about how Juice WRLD's words cut him deep and that it was all he could think about for a long time. He said, "What have I done? What have I done to other people, and what did I do to myself?" Juice WRLD's 2nd album came out in March of last year. Death Race for Love features cover art inspired by Twisted Metal, Jarad's favorite video game series. The album hit #1 on the Billboard charts, and Jarad spent the rest of the year dropping high-profile collaborations like All Night with 2 members of BTS, Hate Me with Ellie Goulding, and Bandit with NBA YoungBoy in October. Jarad was on top of the world, with massive amounts of streams on everything he touched. His His ability to write and sing soulful ballads while sticking to the SoundCloud rap aesthetic was wildly appealing to teenagers all over the world, and there was almost nothing he couldn't do. He made use of the familiar sound of emo rap, emo rock, punk, and hip-hop to create music that all teenagers could relate to and gravitate towards. Juice WRLD often said that he only wrote from his personal experiences, and that expressing his pain and vulnerability through music was something that helped him find a sense of inner strength. On December 8, 2019, Juice WRLD was flying into Chicago's Midway Airport from Los Angeles. While boarding the small private jet, the plane's pilot had noticed that Juice and his crew were carrying guns and a large amount of drugs. He notified law enforcement during the flight, and when they got to the airport, a team of cops was waiting to board the plane and search for evidence. During the ensuing chaos, Jarad swallowed multiple pills in an attempt to hide evidence that could possibly send him to jail. His massive dose caused him to start convulsing and seizing. Narcan was administered, but it was ineffective, and Jarad was pronounced dead at the hospital shortly after. His autopsy revealed that he died from toxic levels of oxycodone, codeine, and Percocet. I don't think there was anyone who was shocked that Juice WRLD died. Maybe they said something like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it," but I really don't think the news truly shook anyone to their core. It's not that Juice wasn't impactful or influential enough. In fact, it's quite the opposite. With billions of streams, he was arguably the most famous musician to die young in the last few years, and he was only going to keep getting bigger. He had totally mastered the SoundCloud formula, bringing it to a wider audience with more friendly, simplistic pop sensibilities than, say, Lil Peep or X. Jarad took a genuine underground phenomenon and made it truly marketable as a mainstream sound. I would even go so far as to say that Juice WRLD sounded more comfortable in his collaborations with pop singers like Ellie Goulding and Halsey than in his collaborations with rappers like Future. He was a pop star at heart, and more importantly, he was a kid too, a fan of anime and punk bands and Percy Jackson books. The real story that's emerging from the ashes of Gen Z rappers is one of historical foreshadowing. Rappers from the 90s were, among many other things, drug dealers. They molded themselves after the Italian mafia. They drove big cars and dressed nicely, and a fair few of them turned their rap careers into billion-dollar business empires. But above all of that, they glorified drug dealing and organized crime in general as a way to rise in the socioeconomic ranks. What they didn't account for was the massive effect that would have on young people for decades to come. Because while many factors point to pharmaceutical corporations as the primary cause of the American drug epidemic, pop culture made it cool. Rappers like Jay-Z, 50 Cent, Biggie, Pusha T, they've caused a domino effect. It only makes sense that rappers who deal drugs will create a generation of people who use that as a way to escape poverty, and in turn, creating a generation of people who think that taking drugs is a good way to solve their problems. It's a web of factors and causations too big to truly understand. All I can hope for is that as lawsuits against pharmaceutical companies begin rising in number, and the conversation around addiction and mental health becomes more open and less taboo, that one day soon I will never have to make videos like this again. But until then, I'm not going to stop, because behind every tragedy in pop culture, there's a person, a family, a group of friends, a lover. Childhood, education, passion, and talent. I genuinely feel like healing is only possible through honesty and openness. I wish that Juice WRLD had access to the resources he needed to change the course of his life, but he didn't. And so the only thing we can do now is work harder towards a better future. Because somewhere out there is a kid with so much promise, he's going to be just as talented and just as big as Juice ever was. And I want that kid to live past 21. This has been Volksgeist. Thank you for watching. And if you want to learn more about the world around you, I recommend checking out CuriosityStream. CuriosityStream is the streaming service home to thousands of documentaries and non-fiction titles about history, technology, nature, science, and more. CuriosityStream presents one of the best streaming deals available at just $19.99 a year or $3 a month. But now this deal has gotten even better, because when you sign up for a yearly subscription with CuriosityStream, you're also getting unlimited access to Nebula. And you can try both of these services for free by following the link in the description. Nebula is a streaming site that I myself am involved with building. All new Volksgeist videos go up on there completely ad-free before I put them on YouTube. But more importantly, the thing that really makes Nebula special are the originals. For example, my good friend Polyphonic has a fantastic Nebula original series about Led Zeppelin. And who knows, maybe there will be a Volksgeist Nebula original out soon, say in the next month or so. And lots of your favorite creators are already on Nebula, like Mr. Amazing, Middle 8, Polyphonic, Tirzu, the list goes on. By signing up for Nebula, you'll be supporting the educational creator community, regardless of whether or not YouTube continues to support what we do. So sign up for a yearly subscription to CuriosityStream and enjoy their programming, as well as all that Nebula has to offer for less than $20 for the whole year.